What's up, guys, and welcome back to our NHL draft rosters from 2000 to 2010. So, in last video, we showed you guys all the way from Colorado all the way to the New York Islanders. In this one, you'll get from the Rangers all the way down here to the Caps. And then also, we'll do the Atlanta team because I decided to call them Atlanta considering it was only Atlanta from 2000 to 2010 that drafted. The Jets came into existence drafting from like 2011 onwards. So let's get started with where was it? The New York Rangers. So the rosters for the New York Rangers draft team, as you can see, the first line you got Chris Kreider, Derek Stepan, Ryan Callahan. Then you got Dale Weiss, Brandon Dubinsky, and Carl Hagelin. So you got a really good center core actually, because this third line is even pretty good. You got Jesper Fast, Artem Anisimov, and Lori Korpikoski. Then fourth line you got Marc-Andre Cliche, Tom Pyatt, and David Kvetin. I don't even know who this dude is really. He was drafted 4th round in 2006. Defensively, you got Mark Stahl and Michael Del Zotto as the top defensive pairing. So it's a bit weak. Stahl's pretty good, but like Del Zotto is a little weak. And then you got Tootin and McIlrath, and then this defensive pairing is really weak. You got Nate Gennin and Corey Potter. Goaltending wise, you got Henrik Lundqvist, so a really good starter. Obviously, he was another steal way back in the 7th round of 2000. And then you got Al Montoya, who is supposed to be a really good goaltender, drafted 6th overall, but he's more of a backup goalie. So these two should be like vice versa. So like Montoya should have been a 7th round pick, and Lundqvist should have been like a really high up pick. Scratch wise, you got David Skokan, Dominic Moore, who's now back, I think, in the Rangers. Maybe not. Maybe he's in Toronto. Yeah, he's in Toronto now. You got Ryan Holwig rocking that weird ass mustache. Ivan Barenka, Jacob Petrozalik, Pontus Petterstrom, Dane Byers, Brody Dupont, Dylan Reese, Darren Over, and Bobby Sanguinetti. There's also 5 more, but I'm not going to show you guys because it will take too long if I just keep showing as extras. So now on to the Ottawa Senators, and my Ottawa Senators have drafted pretty decently throughout the last little while, like throughout the first 3 lines, but after that it drops off a lot. So first line you got Mike Hoffman, Jason Spezza, and Mark Stone. Stone was a 6th round pick in 2010, another one of those kind of steal players. Hoffman is 5th round in 2009. Second line you got Brooks Lake, Antoine Vermette, and Nick Foligno. Third line you got Jacob Silverberg, Zach Smith, and Colin Greening. Fourth line Marcus Sorensen, who is now a member of the San Jose Sharks. I guess he's kind of like a rookie there because he played a couple games during this season with them. You also got Peter Regan and Patrick Eves. Defensively, you got a kind of a weak defensive core, but it looks good because of Erik Karlsson. So you got Karlsson and Wirkosh, Mazeros and Cowan, and then you got Gryba and Borowiecki, or Borvieski, whatever you want to pronounce it as. Goaltending wise, they're pretty good. You got Leonard and Elliott. On scratch side of things, you got Ray Emery, Matthias Karlsson, Arttu Lintnen, Jakob Klepis, who was actually a 1st round pick way up, 16th in 2002. You got Ozzy Luhivara, Yanni Kolomainen. A lot of these guys are Finnish players. Jeff Glass, who's actually now in the AHL. Again, he was in the Sens AHL affiliate for a while, and then I think he moved over to Europe, and then he came back again to the AHL thing. So he's like in the Toronto Marlies or Rockford IceHawks, I think now. You also got Thomas Kedelka, Cody Bass, Philip Seydoux, and Kaspers Dogovins. Now on to the Philadelphia Flyers, who are one of the worst draft teams in this kind of roster build. So the first line's pretty nice. You get JVR with Giroux and Patrick Sharp. Second line is not too bad either. You got Justin Williams with Jeff Carter and Patrick Maroon. So the first 2 centers are really, really good, but then it drops off a lot as you got Ty McGinn, Mike Richards, Steve Downey, and then the 4th line's really weak. Zach Ronaldo, Michael Chaput, and Tristan Grant. Defensively, it's also really weak because a lot of their players have retired on the defensive core. So like Yoni Pickenton is retired now, even though he was probably one of the best defensemen they've drafted. You got Dennis Seidenberg and Lucas Spiza, Oliver Lordson and Oskars Bartulis, David Prince and UC Timonen, who's Kimmo Timonen's brother. Goaltending wise, you got Joachim Eriksson and Nikola Ryopel. Scratch, you got Nick Luco, Ryan Potomli, Eunice Letovari, I don't even pronounce it, Simon Bertilson, Kevin Rami, John Matsumoto, Kevin Marshall, Brendan Ranford, Adam Morrison, and Michael Parks. Next on to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and people always think the Pittsburgh Penguins drafted well. Other than Crosby, Malkin, and Letang, and Marc-Andre Fleury, didn't really have anybody else. So first line, you got Matt Molson, Crosby, and Jordan Staal. A lot of people don't also realize that Matt Molson was drafted by the Penguins in the 9th round in 2003, but after that, I think he signed as a free agent with LA, and that's how his career got jump-started. Second line, you got Dustin Jeffrey, Evgeny Malkin, Tom Kuhnackel. Third line, Bo Bennett, Brian Rust, and Kenny Agostino. And fourth line, Paul Bissonnette, Eric Christensen, and Joe Vitale. Defensively, they're really good, though. As you can see, Jake Muzzin was actually a draft pick by the Pittsburgh Penguins, 5th round in 2007, but they didn't keep him. So you got him with Letang, you got Orpik with Goligoski, and Depre with Portuzo. So that's a really good defensive core. It's not the best defensive core in this build, which belongs to the Nashville Predators. Goaltending-wise, you got Marc-Andre Fleury and Chad Johnson. Scratch, you got Casey Pirro-Zabal, Nathan Moon, Reed McNeil, Ben Hanowski, Philip Samuelson, Nick Peterson, Brian Ichanek, I don't even know his name, but this guy's eye looks like he got hit by a puck or something. Johannes Salomonson, Thomas Arovi, Steven Dixon, and Noah Welsh. Next on to the San Jose Sharks, and they actually haven't drafted that well either. First line, you got Ryan Clough with Logan Couture and Joe Pavelski. Pavelski was a 7th round pick in 2003. Second line, you got Tommy Wingles, Charlie Coyle, and Milan McCulloch. Third line, Fraser McLaren, Nick Bonino, and Jamie McGinn. And fourth line, Steve Bernier, Patrick Zacherson, and John McCarthy. Defensively is pretty good. You got Vlasic and Braun, Demers and Ehrhoff, and then it drops off a lot to Derek Jocelyn and Taylor Doherty. Goalie-wise, they haven't drafted good at all. You got Thomas Greiss and Alexander Stalock. Scratched, you got William Wren, Chris Crane, Josh Hennessy, Kai Hospelt, Marcel Gotch, Chris Newberry, Tim Conboy, Dimitri Pazzold, Ashton Rome, Devin Setaguchi, and Torrey Mitchell. A lot of the players San Jose drafted actually were all like playing in the German league, and a lot of them are German players. That's another kind of trend I've realized, that San Jose seems to draft a lot of German-born players, or Germany-born players. Now onto the St. Louis Blues. Their team is pretty deep. You got a really good first line. You got Tarasenko, Backus, and Schwartz. Second line, you got Perron, Soderberg, and Oshie. Third line's also pretty strong, except for the left side. You got Berglund, Litera, and Peluso. And in fourth line, you got Berner, Lars Eller, and Lee Stempniak. Defensively, he's also pretty strong. You got Eric Johnson, who I think he's a bit of a bust because he was a first overall pick, but he's nowhere near as good as people like Taze were. And Taze, I think, went 3rd overall that year, so I think he was a mistake. St. Louis should have taken Taze instead. Then you also got Alex Pietrangelo, Ian Cole, Nikita Nikitin, David Runeblad, who's a bit of a bust as well, and Roman Polak. On the goaltending core, you got Ben Bishop and Jake Allen, so a really good goaltending tandem. And then scratch, you got Giamatti Altman, Jay McClement, Jonas Younglund, Alexander Hellstrom, Nick Drazanovich, Alexandra Bolduc, Ryan Reeves, Christopher Berglund, Rado Berra, Tyler Shattuck, and Simon Hjalmarsson. Now on to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay has drafted one of the worst as well, which is kind of surprising because they won cup during the 2000s, but their team is really, really weak. A lot of these guys that they drafted don't play anymore, or if they do, they play in the KHL, so they don't have ways to add them onto this team. But the first line, you got Alex Killorn, Steven Stamkos, Brett Connolly, so a really good top line center, but after that, it's just really horrible. Second line, Richard Panik, Luca Conti, and James Wright. Third line, Nick Ternasky, Blair Jones, and Ryan Craig. Fourth line, you got Merrick Kvapel, Johan Haru, and Brendan O'Donnell. Defensively, they have one really good defenseman, obviously, in Victor Hedman. But after that, Gudis, Mike Lundin, Mark Barbario, Adam Janosik, and Luke Witkowski. Goaltending-wise, they haven't drafted good either. You got Kari Ramo and Dustin Tokarski. And scratch, you got Jonathan Booten, Mats Maybe, Kevin Quick, Matthias Sointu, Tegan Zahn, and Yaroslav Janus, or Janus, I think it's pronounced. Now on to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they've actually drafted pretty strong, despite missing the playoffs pretty much all those years in 2000 to 2010. Well, it was more 2004 to 2013, I think. But first line, you got Alexander Steen, Nazem Kadri, and Leo Komarov. Toronto did trade away a lot of these good players before they became good, so this is why the Leafs aren't that good of a team, or weren't good of a team for many years. So you got also Brad Boyes, Matt Stajan, and Nikolai Kuhlman. Third line, you got Yuri Tolusti, Jarkko Immonen, and Victor Stahlberg. Fourth line, Jimmy Hayes, John Mitchell, and Jamie Devane. Now defensively, they have some good defenders. So you got Strawman and Gunnarsson, Cole Yakovo, and Luke Shen, who's a big bust as well. 5th overall in 2008, but he's not been that good at all. And then third defensive pairing, Greg Pattern and Petter Granberg. Goaltending wise, you got Tuukka Rask, who a lot of people don't also realize he was drafted by the Leafs, but the Leafs didn't keep him. They probably should have, because he would have been their starter currently. And then you got James Reimer as the backup. Scratch, you got Urias Mikus, you got Greg McKegg, Jesse Blacker, Matt Fratton, Chris DiDomenico, Kenny Ryan, Tyler Rigseger, Andrew McWilliam, Carl Pillar, Thomas Mojes, and Michael Telquist. Now on to the Vancouver Canucks. In the Vancouver Canucks, they've also drafted really horribly. A lot of their players don't play anymore. So first line, you got Grabner, Kessler, and Hansen. Not a bad first line. Second line, RJ Umberger, Mario Bliznek, and Anton Rodin. And then it's really weak for the bottom six. You got Mike Brown, Jordan Schrader, and Mason Raymond. Fourth line, John Laliberty, Alex Friesen, and Nicholas Danielson. Defensively, you got a good top defender in Alexander Edler, but after that, Bieksa, Kevin Connaughton, Daniel Rahimi, Jan Sauve, and Peter Anderson. Goaltending-wise, you got a really good starter in Corey Schneider, but a really weak backup in Joe Canada. And then scratch, you got Brett Skinner, Yara Simic, Thomas Newsley, Patrick McNally, and Taylor Matson. Now into the Washington Capitals, and they've arguably drafted the best over the 2000 to 2010 range. So first line, you got Alexander Ovechkin with Nick Backstrom and Alexander Semin. Second line, you got Eric Fehr, Evgeny Kuznetsov, Marcus Johansson. Then you got Matthew Perreault, Cody Eakin, Peter Guggesberg. Fourth line, Boyd Gordon, Travis Morin, and Stanislav Galiev. Defensively, you got a really good defensive core, Alzner and Carlson, Green and Oduya, and then you got Orlov and Jeff Schultz. Goaltending-wise is really nice as well. You got Holtby and Varlamov. And then scratched, you got Chris Bork, Andrew Gordon, Andrew Georgre, Patrick McNeil, Victor Hubble, Tim Kennedy. A nice another goalie, you got Michael Neuwirth, Anton Gustafsson. This guy was actually a first-round pick as well. Didn't turn out to be anything. Garrett Mitchell, Brett Fleming, and Justin Taylor. There's also Philip Grubauer in there, but he's not one of the ones shown. And now the final team to show you guys is the Atlanta/Winnipeg draft team. So first line, you got Evander Kane with Brian Little and Ilya Kovalchuk. Second line, Jeremy Morin, Jim Slater, Alexander Burmistrov. Third line, Danny Heatley, John Albert, and Patrick Dwyer. And fourth line, Carl Klingberg, Nicholas Lassu, and Thomas Pospisil. I decided to make this team's colors the Winnipeg Jets team colors and use the Atlanta Flames logo just so at least it looked like the Atlanta Jets kind of or something. Then defensively, a lot of busts on this defensive core. Braden Coburn was an 8th overall pick. Didn't turn out to be anything really huge. He still plays, but not that big of a defender. And then Zach Bogosian was a 3rd overall pick in 2008. He's also a bit of a bust. Then you got Tobias Enstrom, Ben Sherratt, Zach Redmond, and Paul Postma. Goaltending wise, you got Kari Lettinen and Andrei Pavlik. And in scratch, you got a lot of weird guys that have played overseas and stuff like that. A lot of busts as well. So you got Levko Copper, Cody Soul, Eddie Pasquale, who actually I think just won a Calder Cup with Grand Rapids. Frederick Pedersen Wenzel, Julian Malorchi, Danik Paquette, Will O'Neill, Jordan Samuels Thomas, Peter Stukowicz, I don't know if it's that, and Dalton LaVille. This guy is a big bust, 29th overall, so not that late in the first round, but this guy's not even played in the NHL. He's been more in the ECHL and stuff like that. And then you got Jimmy Shero. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for the part 3 of my draft prospect rosters. So next video is going to be the season simulation where we can see who is the champion and the best draft prospect team from 2000 to 2010. And yeah, so we're just going to throw it into a season simulation and see who comes out on top. So thank you guys for watching. See you guys next time.